All right, how's it going, everybody? So I wanted to take this opportunity to pretty much show you guys the entire inner workings of the Alesis Strike Pro Special Edition, the SE model, and show you the major differences of what the regular Strike and the SE models have to offer. So to start off with, pretty much what we have here is, a couple badges that were actually taken off of the shells, and this is part of a major project that I'm actually starting on each of these drums. But as you can see here, I have all of the hardware taken off of each of the drums. This is the snare drum portion. These are all the toms, and the bass drum stuff is all set aside, including the trigger. But again, that's all part of this sort of like video detailing all the insides of the drum, all the triggering and all that. So with each tom, this is all included, pretty much the same exact identical build, except for the bass drum itself. But all the toms and the snare drum are pretty much exactly the same when it comes to the internal mounting piezo triggering system. So what you have here to start with is the sensitivity knob, and that goes far left, far right, and 12 o'clock position to dial in your sensitivity of each of the triggering that happens coming from all the impact points. As you can see here, all the pillars, which have been totally redone and reworked from the original Strike version of the kit. So initially, instead of having the step kind of like pattern, each of the original foam like sort of cylinders that actually went pressed up against the head were just straight cylinders, like cheaply sort of crudely cut out cylinders that are actually very reminiscent of this piece here on my Axis pedal. They looked exactly the same except for foam material. So the step ladder sort of like formation kind of helps center the better positioning, I guess, to where you have like a larger base. And as you can see here, this is a aluminum centerpiece, and I'm illuminating the the little section there so you can see the reflection. And I guess this is the little piezo section here that goes to that sensitivity knob, and it's all routed to the 1/4 inch input. And both of these are set side by side on each of the shells, so they're very close in proximity to each other. The underneath part of the center bracket is actually foam, so it is very flexible, as you got with the regular Strike setup, except with the original Strike pads, you got like this weaker plastic sort of I guess setup of center mounted pillars, and that had a tendency to crack. So a lot of times customers found themselves calling for customer service and pretty much getting returns and replacements because of like faulty equipment or whatever. So a lot of newer drummers that kind of like picked up those Strike kits ended up getting the same plastic build because they didn't get the special edition version. So that plastic setup, what they would do is get tape and pretty much have a cross formation between. That way, if it inevitably did break, the rumor was that supposedly you would get a stronger impact point. However, if it did inevitably break, it wouldn't fall apart and end up falling down. Like the pillars wouldn't fall over or go in between the nooks and crannies there. What you also see is the outer plastic portion, which is much more thinner of a plastic, and it does have a circle foam that it is also housed on top of. So you get two independently moving pieces from one another. And the chassis, which underneath all of that, this is the under part of your drum pad. So instead of mesh material hiding all the innards or whatever of the drum, you get a solid chassis with each component put on top and bolted down along the outer rim, floating on top of this kind of like basket sort of setup. Now on the bass drum, Completely opposite, what you get is a center mounted piezo trigger that has two separate components here. One of them is the impact patch, which you can see the traces of my of a Remo Flam Falum Slam beater patch, and that actually just kind of like couples together with the regular bass drum head, as you can see, to get away from that flexible mesh material feel, so you can have more of kind of a tactile like surface to play on. And instead, obviously, you know, you hit the patch and then it translates all that vibration to this soft foam, which is backed up with a more rigid foam down the back end here. And these are totally independent and replaceable from the kit. And the actual trigger point here is this piezo mounted on a hard surface, which is mounted on the bracket. The bracket then sits recessed into the bass drum, held together by these L-rod points, and bolted down to the top portion of the shell, which would be the receiver closest to the head. Now, altogether, you know, the triggering pretty much just goes positive, negative out to a 1/4 inch, which is then, you know, routed outside to the outer edge of the bass drum. It's just one, you know, sort of input, and there you go. So these are all my shells, actually, you know, completely undone and taken apart, and there's a little kind of like tooth there on each of these drums to kind of help that snare basket recess and stay stationary in one position. And yeah, so I guess this opportunity sort of came up in this larger project that I'm doing to completely refinish my drums with entirely new drum wraps. And I was actually gonna go ahead and do another video after the fact to kind of showcase that, you know, the final product on that. So I removed all the badges from each and every one of the drums, which they're actually placed on, you know, well, again, on top of each of the pads, whatever. So here's your 2 14s. That's a snare. That's the floor tom, rack tom number 2, which is the 12-inch, and then the that's the 12-inch floor tom, 14-inch floor tom, 14-inch snare, 10-inch rack tom, and then the additional 10-inch rack tom. So, sorry, 10 and 8. There we go. I'm getting my numbers all mixed up. Outside of that, pretty much the 8-inch has the least amount of hardware on it. It's only a four-way cross lug pattern, I guess. And another major fix that was sort of you know, placed on in these drums was to sort of like pretty it up and kind of like give a flat surface. This is like the official reveal once you remove the head. So that's pretty much how everything looks, and everything's like hidden and tucked underneath. And what I believe this foam does is kind of like helps the pillars stay in line if the adhesive were to ever give out. So that's just kind of a way of keeping everything in line and keeping everything sort of like set up. So yeah, I guess that pretty much concludes the video, and hope you guys learn something from this. Rather than taking your own drums apart, here are all the mounting brackets here. They're all pretty much the same uniform size, L-rod, heavy duty, you know, obviously regular mounting brackets that go on the drum rack. As you can see, I have like this spaghetti of all the chases, you know, on all the mono or stereo 1/4 inch, but all of them slide down in here, fasten, and there you go. So it's all totally suspended hardware. Same thing with the cymbals. I have no tops on the cymbals, so I kind of give them a little bit more room to wobble around as I hit them, and you know, a little bit more dancing room, which occasionally this one does, you know, come out of its sleeve on the bottom end, and you just kind of fix it back into place, and you know, no big deal. So hi-hats are going through my regular Pacific 2-legged hi-hat stand, which is a little bit janky, I guess, because it's seen a couple performances, but I have the tension set all the way up and kind of like hammered into place, so you have like total up action, and that way it can harness the slightly heavier weight hi-hat, but it's kind of like the pad itself feels a little bit similar to a bottom hi-hat, maybe like a Sabian HH bottom hi-hat. That's kind of the same weight distribution, so it's something that I was used to anyway in terms of downforce. But nonetheless, all the hardware, as you may know by now, it's all gold hardware on black lugs. Standard, you know, regular drum screws, regular other hardware, I guess. You know, I guess as far as all the other mounts and stuff like that, that's all fairly standard stuff, except the shells have been, you know, redone to fit all the electronics. And yeah, so again, if you've learned a thing or two, I guess, with this video, go ahead and hit that like button, and see you guys in the next one, where I'll be pushing more media as far as music and more kind of like walkarounds on the kit once it's totally finished. And I can't wait to, you know, show you guys the next video. So see you guys in the next one.